A year and a half ago, Peguis First Nation acquired some of the most desirable residential land in Winnipeg. The new chief of Peguis wants to know why that land was flipped to a private developer. CBC's Bartley Kivas brings us this story.
This is 611 Wellington Crescent, nearly 3 acres of riverfront land in one of Winnipeg's most desirable residential neighbourhoods. There was a rehab centre for children here until 2016. A few years later, the province decided it no longer needed this property, so it offered it up to 5 First Nations eligible to acquire property under the treaty land entitlement process. That process is intended to compensate First Nations that never received their fair share of land. According to the province, Peguis First Nation, the most populous First Nation in Manitoba, was the only interested buyer for this land. In 2022, the province sold 611 Wellington Crescent to a numbered company controlled by Peguis First Nation Real Estate Trust. 6 months later, the Real Estate Trust sold the company to a private developer. That developer has plans to build 14 luxury bungalows on the site. Stan Bird was elected chief of Peguis First Nation 2 months after the land was bought and sold.
Well, I feel a bit angry about that. Our community was left in the dark. We're just hearing bits and pieces of, some of the sales that have happened in the past.
Bird said he's upset land that was purchased under the treaty land entitlement process was sold instead of getting added to Peguis reserve lands.
Very upset. Land is important to our people. Land for our people is not a commodity. Our land is very much tied to our culture, and without that, we don't have an identity, and I believe that that's one of the reasons our people continue to struggle.
Struggle over land is not new to Peguis. Its reserve used to encompass fertile agricultural fields around St. Peter's, near Selkirk. But in 1907, the community was swindled out of that land and pushed onto its current reserve on a floodplain in the northern Inner Lake.
But I remember the floodwaters coming up just below the school there. This is the old school, the rec center.
Here, the nation has struggled. Many members have left or have been forced out of their homes because of repeated flooding along the Fisher River and financial troubles that include lawsuits for unpaid loans. Bird says Peguis has to contemplate the meaning of land.
It's not about money. It's much more than that. And the fact that the lands that we owned, that we were swindled out of and moved into this community.
Bird says he's investigating the sale and resale of this land. The province sold 611 Wellington Crescent for $350,000, a price it said was based on a fair market value appraisal conducted 5 years before. The province wouldn't release that appraisal, but stated that appraisal took into account the need to demolish the old rehab centre, remove hazardous material, and stabilize the riverbank. Bob M. Timniak is a broker with Capital Commercial Real Estate in Winnipeg. He called the sale price for 3 acres of Wellington Crescent land ridiculously low, even with the state of the property.
I think that this land ought to be probably worth at least $1.5 million an acre, likely more.
We asked Timniak how many parties would have been interested in buying that land for $350,000.
I think there would be a list of developers longer than you could think of in the next 5 minutes that would have interest in doing that. Yeah, it'd be a very, very desirable piece of property, especially for that price.
Winnipeg developer Andrew Marquis advised Peguis on the 611 Wellington purchase. He commissioned an appraisal that pegged the value of the land at $1.8 million. CBC News asked Marquis if he thought the $350,000 sale price was fair.
I'm not sure it's a fair question given, all the other factors of, the province's role and relationship with Indigenous communities.
Winnipeg lawyer Yvonne Guy Larocque, an expert in treaty land entitlement, says selling land below market value can serve as economic reconciliation.
It's the prerogative of the Crown to make those decisions, and obviously every case is different.
According to the Peguis First Nation Real Estate Trust, the company that owns 611 was sold for $2.8 million. Its website pegged the profit on the sale at $1.8 million. A financial statement showed the profit at closer to $1.4 million. LaRocque said there's nothing preventing a First Nation from acquiring property under the treaty land entitlement process and then selling it instead of developing it.
And so if there's a benefit to the nation and the members by selling a piece of land rather than adding it to reserve or developing it, I think it's the prerogative of the nation to make that decision.
One of the trustees for Peguis First Nation Real Estate Trust said he doesn't understand why Chief Stan Bird is questioning the decision to buy and sell the land.
To acquire it and then to sell it, like I don't know what the issue with profit is on it. It's just a normal business deal, right? There's nothing that's different from any other business deal.
Stevenson said he's tried to meet with Bird to no avail.
This here, like I said, is this area over here.
Stan Bird said he only wants to know why Peguis First Nation is once again missing out on land, in this case, highly desirable land purchased on the cheap.
It put us in a position, in a really good position, but again, that was taken away. So my question is why?
Stan Bird ran for office on a promise to make Peguis's finances more transparent. Right now, he says, his community has been left in the dark. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.